Yeah, welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast live. Yes. So, abnormal time for me to go live here, but I figured, I got a topic I want to discuss before I forget about it. So, definitely wanted to get on the show here, go live, give a little discussion about it, see what type of engagement we get, see who decides to show up and listen to what we got to say about the topic. And I think it's an interesting one. Just had some read some stuff and then listened to the full commentary from one BJ Armstrong, former world champion with the Chicago Bulls, obviously most famously played during the first three-peat with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. And he had some pretty good comments about today's game in terms of the modern NBA. So wanted to share with you my thoughts on that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a few minutes, see if we get anybody in the chat, and then I am going to go ahead and get into it. But before we do, I'm going to go ahead and give my spiel. That way we can go ahead and get started a little sooner. So you know how that goes, but here it is. If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we are live here on the Format Podcast, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in, talk to us, get at me. I love it. I can't. All right, so we'll just wait a couple more minutes, see if we get anything going, and then we will we'll kick it off. If not, I'll just go ahead, drop what I got to drop, and if you miss it, then you missed it, but you can always catch it on the replay. Yeah, so normally we're in the height of football and college football season, and I would be doing a lot of talking about that right now. But as we know, the NBA is off and running also. And so we're getting a number of interesting topics on that front as well. So, we got to cover it all. This is a sports show. This is not just a basketball show. It's not just a football show, not just a boxing show, right? We talk about all the different things here that are interesting or that we think might be interesting to you, the viewer, the listener. And so, we try to cover this stuff, and let's see what we got. But I do think that this was a pretty interesting, topic. So I guess what I'm going to do is I see a couple of people in the chat. Go ahead, let me know who you are, where you're coming from, and then I guess we'll go ahead and get started. So, yeah. But yeah, what we have going on today is BJ Armstrong definitely made some interesting comments about the state of play in the modern NBA. So I wanted to give my thoughts on that because I think it's very interesting, especially since I've been talking about the state of play in the modern NBA for some years now. And so I wanted to just kind of follow up with that. All right. Yeah. So let's do it. All right. So I'm a guy that if you've been around this show, you know that I'm not the biggest fan of the modern NBA. I'm not the biggest fan of the way it's played. Nino, what's good, my brother? Good to see you. Good to see you. I'm not the biggest fan of the way the modern NBA and the modern game is played. I'm not the biggest fan of the so-called GOAT debate. And it's amazing to me the way there seems to be this divide between generations, maybe more so than we've ever seen before. And it's crazy. Now, I think it's so funny because, I'm 46 years old. So I've been around a little bit. I've seen multiple generations and iterations of a lot of different things, not just sports, right? Technology, life in general, culture, so on and so forth, right? But it seems to me, and I could be wrong because I was looking at this from a kid's perspective when I was younger, but it seems to me that, now the generational gap seems to be bigger than it ever has been before. And it seems to play a greater role in the way people think and evaluate things than it ever has before. Now, I'm sure that when I was a kid and I was a teenager and a young man, my parents were looking like, what's wrong with this guy, man? These kids today, right? Which it sounds crazy, but now, you're older, you're an adult, you being me, right? And, I'm middle age now. I have an adult child of my own, so I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, yeah, this is crazy, right? You know, you look at the teenagers, you look at the young adults, and obviously they see the world through a very different lens. They live a very different life. Standards are different, ideals are different, the way they think is different. And for me personally, it's very frustrating because there is more information available to this generation than there has been for any generation who's ever lived throughout human history, right? I mean, for instance, we can look at it as simply as, okay, cool, we got, what's this, a smartphone, right? And so we can pick that up and literally have access to the world of information within seconds, right? And so to me, there's no reason for anyone to be ignorant, right? If you want to be ignorant, I guess that's almost a choice because there's so much information available to you. But you know, that's kind of a different thing. But anyway, what I mean by all that is, when I talk about basketball, for instance, right? I talk about basketball, and one of the things I always refer to is the fact that I have been watching basketball since the mid to late 1980s, right? Now, in the mid 1980s, let's see, 1986, when the Celtics won Larry Bird's last championship. In 1987, when they lost in the finals, that was Larry Bird's last final run. 1987, let's say, right? I was 9 years old. Cool. So 1987, I'm 9 years old. I'm not really sure what I'm watching yet. All I know is I love the Celtics. I love watching these guys play. Larry Bird at the time was one of my favorite players, right? If not my favorite player. Cool. But I didn't really know what I was watching. So let's speed forward to the early 90s. Now I'm starting to get an idea, right? By the time Mike wins his first championship, I'm 91, I'm 13. So now I'm getting an idea. I know what I'm watching. I know what I'm seeing, and I'm astounded by all of this, right? But remember, I started watching this stuff mid to late 80s, okay? So I count that, even though I wasn't truly understanding, but I count it, I've seen it, so I have an idea. And even now I can go back to that via YouTube and such, and I can say, okay, I can watch it. Okay, I remember this. Now I see what's going on, blah, blah, blah. So the point is, that's if we count the 80s, we count the 90s, we count the 2000s, 2010s, and now the 2020s. I'm now into my fifth decade, even though I'm not 50 yet, but I'm now into the fifth decade of watching NBA basketball. What does this mean to you? This means to some of you, I'm just an old head hater, right? I hear that all the time, right? But what it means to me is I have a reference point that goes across multiple generations and multiple iterations of the NBA. And so with that reference point and that experience, I can do a better job in comparing what I see versus let's say you get the young cat. I got a nephew. He's 22. Shout out, Jay. What up? And yeah, Jakari, he's 22. So he's always telling me LeBron is the GOAT. Today's era of the NBA is better, blah, 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 blah. We have all these arguments, right? I say, yo, Jakari, you're 22, right? This is 2024. Let's say you started watching the NBA at 10 years old and you knew what you were seeing, right? That's 14 years of watching the NBA. Cool, you've been watching ball that long, all right? That means you started watching the NBA in 2013. What reference point do you really have to compare the NBA as it is now versus the previous generations for you to say that today's players are so much skilled and today's game is so much better? Where is your reference point? You don't have it. That's not to denigrate you. You just don't have it. And most of the young fans who watch the NBA who lack that reference point, they're not going back and studying the previous eras and the previous generations in order to make informed comparison. They're not doing that. They're just going by what they've been told, right? They're going by the marketing that has been pushed to them, right? King James, today's era is the most skilled we've ever seen, blah, 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 right? No comparison. Okay, cool. The 3 is better than 2, analytics, blah, 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 blah. Cool. But you don't have the reference point to really effectively make that assessment. And this is one of my biggest pushbacks to when people talk about how we're done with the 90s or the 80s was whack and they didn't have athletes and blah, blah. Whole nother argument. All right, cool. But we look at today's play style, right? And you watch this show, you know, I talk about it ad nauseum, right? I say, what was one of the things I say? Today's play style sucks because most of these games are turning into a 3-point shootout, right? 3-point shootout. Reggie Miller entered the NBA in 1987, I believe. Average team was taking between 4 and 7 3-point attempts per game, right? Okay. The game was played inside out. The goal was always to try to get a dominant big. Cool. Game played inside out, get a dominant big. That's how you win for the most part. All right. Okay. Most of the teams that were winning at that time, they had bigs, forwards, power forwards, centers. All right, cool. So we're doing all of that. Everything's gravy there. And now you fast forward to 2024. Of course, the game has changed. It's more wide open, more free flowing. And you have the average team shooting 37 3-point attempts per game. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? Seriously. That tells you, one, the analytics has taken over. There's so much of an influence on math in the modern NBA. Okay. Basically, the whole 3 is better than 2 notion, right? Either layup or dunk or a 3-pointer, right? That's what they say. That's what they try to tell you. Okay. Don't necessarily agree with that, but that's fine. So everything is pushing to try and get the corner 3. Every action you run is trying to get the corner or the wing 3, right? Okay. All these players today, whether they're centers or point guards, are coming up shooting, hundreds and thousands or hundreds of thousands of threes by the time they make it to the NBA. Okay, maybe even millions. That's what they're doing. The really good players in the league, they're getting to take, 10, sometimes 15 3-point attempts in a game, right? And I'm not talking about your Steph Currys, your Klay Thompsons, even your James Hardens, et cetera, et cetera. I'm talking, just good players, right? Not even great. Everybody wants to try and be Steph Curry when everyone can't be Steph Curry. Okay, cool. Lots and lots of threes, lots and lots of layups, lots and lots of dunks. The game simply is it's difficult to watch. Can we say that? And most of the players from yesteryear, from the past, and many, many fans from yesteryear in the past, they're turned off by the way the modern game is played because it's really not exciting. Again, most of these games devolve into a 3-point shooting contest, right? And especially when a team is down, what do they say? The quickest way to get back in the game is to do what? Shoot a bunch of threes, get hot from there instead of playing defense, right? Strapping up, playing defense, or freaking running real offense and getting baskets. You know what I'm saying? So that's what you do. So you got all that going on. What's good, Transformer? What's good, brother? Yeah, so you got all that happening. Yeah, and Nino says the game is so difficult. Oh, I'm sorry. Sports T, what's good? What's good? Good to see you, Sports T. Thanks for checking in. Then she says, no more high flying dunks or athleticism on display. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, for a while, the whole thing was, what is it? Dunks or 3-pointers, right? And now it's not even so many dunks. It's a lot more layups, right? Because I don't know if guys are getting hurt or what. I don't know. But, again, let's put aside that whole nonsense of today's players are so much more athletic, right? So much bigger, stronger, faster, more high flying, more athletic, all that. If you just go back, do your research on the 80s, you'll find that is easily debunked. What's going on? It's not that serious. Good to see you. Good to see you. All right. So anyway, I was watching, what is it? I can't remember the name of the podcast. Jeez. I wanted to give respect to that podcast. I forgot what it was called. But anyway, Hoops Genius. I was watching the Hoop Genius podcast and BJ Armstrong was on. And I don't know if he regularly co-hosts it or if he was just on this time, but point is, shout out Hoop Genius podcast. And BJ had a lot to say. So what I'm going to do here is I cut up a good length of his commentary and we'll watch a clip, come back, discuss it, and then go. I've got four clips to play for you from that, and we'll come back after each one. All right. So let's start with number 1 and we'll go from there.
Somewhere here, Mo, it went from one generation to the other. A switch now is the green light for the guard to get the shot when the big guy is now. Now, I don't know how that happened. Well, I still haven't seen a higher percentage shot than a layup or a dunk. I haven't seen a higher. I know that we talk about corner threes and everyone's shooting threes. I don't understand the logic to say, get the best available shot that you can. What I don't like about the game and what I don't like about this play is because now we hear NBA personnel, executives, head coaches, analytic people, presidents of teams, general managers of teams tell me to my face, Mo, and look at me with a straight face, and they say the following: a 2-point shot is a bad shot. Whoa. A 2-point shot now is a bad shot. Well, I made it. I'm shooting 60% from, well, that's a bad shot. We only want 3 shots. We want the corner threes, we want layups, okay, or we want to get to the free throw line. Now, Mo, I don't understand. So I've quietly over the years just said, I'm going to watch it so that I can understand. But all I know is the best players all shoot mid-range shots. Why? Because, Mo, you got to have an imagination to say, what is the defense giving me? Or am I coming out to the game with a predetermined mindset to say, this is what we're going to do? So when I go watch the game, there's no more creativity, there's no more imagination. It's just that we have basically robots running up and down the court. You run to the 3-point line, I run to the 3-point line. At first, I try to get a layup. If I can't get a layup, I try to get fouled.
All right, so that was the first part of what BJ had to say, and I mean, is he lying? Is he lying? I'm sure you got some younger fans, and you're gonna have the LeBron fans and all the ones who wanna cape up for this particular generation of basketball, and what they want to say is, oh, we're just old head haters, and we hating on the new cats and the new league and all that. It's not that. It's actually the exact opposite of that. We're not haters. We love the game of basketball. That's why we're so disturbed by what we are seeing and what the game has become. So I don't know exactly how that's hating. That actually seems to me to be loving, right? We love basketball and we're bothered by what's happened to it, right? So it's I don't know. But so some of what I thought about what he had to say about that. So he says the NBA people, front office people, coaches, etc., are saying the 2 is a bad shot. So first, and I think he's going to say this later, I get on the players a lot, but it's not all the players' fault, right? This is how they're being coached to play from the bottom levels up, right? Is, get a 3 wherever possible, right? Because again, they're going with the math. The math is telling people that the 3 in every case is better than the 2. And so you need less 3s to win than a team that's taking more 2s, right? Mathematically, that's true. But if you execute good offense and get quality 2s, and you have players who have the all-around skill set to make the 2s, then you have less of a problem, right? Now, I get it. If a team, a particular night or a particular game should go hot from 3, well, you ride that hot hand until it's over, right? But to scheme and coach and basically play with the goal of getting up 40 or more 3-point attempts per game every game, that's not coaching. That's not basketball. That's terrible, right? And to me, in all seriousness, I think that's lazy on its face in terms of the players. I think that's lazy in terms of coaching. I think that's lazy in terms of executives. Why? Because you don't have to find somebody who, to use BJ Armstrong's word, is creative as a player. You don't have to find who has a wider skill set. You don't have to find a coach who's innovated in their offensive philosophy. For instance, right, we saw the great Jerry Sloan, God bless the dead, former coach of the Utah Jazz, went to back-to-back NBA finals with Karl Malone and John Stockton, but unfortunately ran into the guy that destroyed a lot of dreams back then, Michael Jordan, the GOAT, right? Jerry Sloan was the one who really made this pick and roll not just possible, but popular. And so Jerry Sloan, of course, he had 2 of the greatest P&R players of all time in John Stockton and Karl Malone, and he was able to run that so many different variations from so many places on the floor with 2 all-time great players, all-time great passer, all-time great shooter scorer, right? And Karl Malone. And Stockton was an outstanding shooter as well, right? 2 extremely durable guys. But with all of that said, now you saw, as time went on, people saw, wow, that pick and roll really works. So look how many offenses in the modern NBA get started with some type of screen and roll action, right? Whether it's at the top or on the wing, or basically it's from all over the floor. They're always looking to get the screen and roll action. And why? Not just necessarily because it's going to make a shot easier, right? Because the way modern defense is done, everything gets switched and you're always hunting the quote unquote mismatch, right? So that's another thing. kind of miss me with this foolishness of today's players are so much more skilled. If they're so much more skilled, why do they always need a mismatch? Why can't they take their guy? I get now and then, you want to utilize the mismatch situation in order to make it easier on your guy, your main scorer, but they shouldn't always need that. For instance, LeBron almost every single time is looking for some type of screen and roll, right? So he can get going downhill on a smaller player, right? I mean, it's just, again, it's pushing the narrative. Today's players are so much better. Today's players, blah, 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 blah. Today's game, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So you see these coaches, these execs, they want to get up these threes, but what does that say to me? The 2-pointer is a bad shot. Well, maybe it is a bad shot today, but a big part of it is because you have players who can't consistently make a 2-point shot, right? Now, again, not to blame the players completely because they are coached and taught that mid-range jump shots, mid-range twos are terrible shots. They are coached and taught that the back to the basket post up is one of the worst and least efficient shots in basketball. But again, it comes down to the other side, the flip side. You got quote unquote supposed bigs who are better at popping out and shooting threes than going to the block, turning over their shoulder with an easy mismatch over, and getting a jump hook and scoring, or getting an up and under and a step through and scoring, or shooting a turnaround jump shot or a bank shot and scoring, right? These guys can't do this. They can't. And that's disturbing. But yet you want to tell me that today's players are so much better and today's game is so much better. It's kind of disturbing. I'm really not getting it. Nino says, I've been saying it's the same as the spread offense in the NFL. The gamble too big to play that old post offense. Yes and no, right? So, and it is very similar to the spread offense in the NFL, right? Get your playmakers in space and make it easier for them to do something after they get the football. I get it. But Nino, when you say that the gamble's too big to play the old post offense, why? Because think about it. To your point, in the modern NBA, with the way the floor is spread, it should be easier than ever because there's so much more ground to cover in terms of collapsing and double teaming the post. It should be easier than ever for a dominant low post scorer to score. For instance, when he's down there, look at Embiid, right? I always talk about Embiid. Y'all know that. I love his game. I think he's insanely skilled on the low block, even though many times he bails out the opposing defense by shooting a three early in the shot clock or something like that. And he is an outstanding mid-range shooter, so I get it. But the point is, in the modern NBA, the way the floor is spread and the way these so-called bigs are, a lot of them are small and frail, it's easy for a big who knows how to play on the block and has an actual post game to get busy. So I don't even really feel that. Okay. And the other thing is, he talked about, he being BJ Armstrong, he talked about coming out with a predetermined mindset. And it's true because we've heard it, right? We've heard, like, I listen to Rick Bucher's podcast a lot. Shout out Rick Bucher. And one of the things he talked about was how, I think somebody from one of these teams told him that they're making a concerted effort to get up 43s per game as a team this season. How lazy is that? That's not coaching. It's not basketball. Again, 3-point shootout. But that's where we are. So let's go ahead and listen to the next part of this. But before we got a couple of chats. New Breed Sports. What up, New Breed? He says modern NBA is bad because of LeBron and Curry, the whining and all these threes, etc. So, all right, here's the deal. I get why people can blame Curry, right? Because, for smaller players and regular sized people, the way he plays gives them a lot of hope that they can play on a high level as well, right? To be a shooter. And it's funny because even when I used to hoop, I was never a super athletic guy, right? There was two things that I tried to do. I tried to be a rebounder. Why? Because I saw Charles Barkley dominating the glass at 6'4". Obviously, I'm not 6'4", but at 6'4", amongst the trees, right? Dominating the glass amongst 7-footers and 6'10" and 6'11" guys. Why? Because he boxed out and because he wanted it badly, right? And oddly enough, even at 6 feet tall, and I was never a particularly big guy. Like when I was in high school and when I was weighing like 145 pounds, I'm 6 feet tall. But guess what? I could rebound. I had a homeboy, one of my brothers, shout out Steph. Me and him, we used to dominate the glass, right? Every game we played together, we get on the glass. But why was that? Because, okay, we weren't particularly great shooters or great scorers or what have you, but we knew that with effort and position, you could rebound, right? So that's a skill that you can have. Now, on the other side, like after that, when I was in junior college and whatnot, I used to play a lot against D3 guys and stuff like that. And that's when I kind of stepped my game out a little bit and I learned how to shoot. because you don't have to be super athletic to shoot. You just have to shoot a lot, right? And so anybody can develop that. But the point is, a guy like Steph Curry gives the average guy like myself hope that, if I work hard enough and hone this one skill hard enough, that, I can possibly become something special. And so I get it. But that said, Steph Curry is a freak of nature with the way he can shoot the rock. That combined with the way the rules are in allowing him to get off a lot of looks, well, that helps a whole lot too. But the point is, everybody can't be Steph Curry no matter how much they shoot, right? No matter how much they shoot, everyone cannot be Steph Curry. And so I get the point of, a lot of people are trying to mimic that, but it's just, it's unreasonable to expect that no matter how much you shoot, you'll ever get to that level. For instance, Trae Young, coming out of college, he was often compared to Steph Curry, but he's not that. Like, look at his percentages. He's got range and he can shoot off the dribble and all that, but he's not Steph Curry. It's a different ball game, right? Steve says, this is why you see unathletic, overweight Europeans come over here and dominate, because they learn high IQ basketball at an early age. Yes, they learn the skills piece, right? They learn that, and they learn how to play the game. They have the skill set, and they learn how to play and how to think the game. And it's not, the game here is so much more lazy. Steve says, to developmental stages of U.S. basketball, 100% right. New breed. Hey, Bruce, I do call Trae Young Lil Steph. Now, he's not Lil Steph, right? I drank the Kool-Aid a little bit when he was at Oklahoma. I was like, oh my gosh, this dude is crazy. But now looking at him, it's not close. I mean, he can shoot the ball. He's got range, but it's not close. All right, so let's go to the second clip from BJ Armstrong. We'll listen to that. We'll come back and talk about it.
If I go to another game and someone drives and you don't call a foul, these players go berserk now, as if it's a rite of passage to go to the basket and look for a foul, right? What did they call that? Swim through move or whatever. You're not even going to the basket. Yeah, whatever they call it. They're not even going to the basket to score. They're just going to the basket to get fouled. So this is what's being taught. I'm not going to be mad at the players. This is what's being taught here. We've stripped the players of any type of imagination. We've stripped the players of any type of read the defense or take what the defense is giving you. It's just now, it's a program. All 30 teams play the same exact way. How? What they all got in one big room and all came to the conclusion this is the way to play? Everyone runs a 5-out offense. Everyone shoots 50 threes a night. And whoever makes the most threes, more times than not, wins the game now.
Wins the championship now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to watch. I'm just going to observe and just say this is what it is. The teachers of the game now have influenced the game so much so that it's more fun for me to go watch a pickup game than to watch the NBA right now. And here's why I say that. Because no one plays the same exact way in the pickup game. This guy drives to the basket. This guy has a little shake in his game. This guy loves to post up.
This guy.
Some players are athletic. It's like fun to watch the creativity or at least the imagination of the game. But when you watch an NBA game, everyone plays the same exact way.
He's got a great point. When you go to the park, well, I guess guys don't really play in the park that much anymore, but when you go to play pickup in the gym, you will see guys with different skill sets, right? And you will see guys who can shoot the long range bomb. You will see guys who can slash and bang on people. You'll see guys who rebound. You'll see guys who pass. Like it's really looks kind of the way basketball should be. Now, with that said, also, not gonna lie, you have seen a lot more guys who want to be Steph Curry, pulling up from all over the place. But you will still see much more different play styles. So I totally get it. Where were we here? Yeah. So it's just crazy. And so listening to what he said, I mean, there's so much truth to the way he was breaking this thing down. And it, again, very frustrating. And I don't have problems with threes. I've always liked shooters, right? I was a big Reggie Miller fan back in the day, Mitch Richmond, Glenn Rice. Loved watching those guys play. But if you also look, those guys would They wouldn't just hang out and wait for the kick out and shoot threes. Those guys were deadly in the mid range. Those guys could go into the post. Those guys are, one dribble, two dribble pull up. Those guys they could go all the way to the rim. They had floaters. They had different aspects of their games, right? And so when you try to tell me that today's players are so much better, so much more skilled, well, that's not true. And I will say what I always say: they have traded one skill for another. Again, how many point guards do you see that are capable of making a post-entry pass? Really? Let's think about this. Now, I know that, again, the back to the basket post-up is not something you see a lot, but how many point guards you really see, like if you think about it, can consistently make a post-entry pass in the modern NBA? Chris Paul and I'll wait, right? You're not going to see much of that. They can't do it. Okay, cool. So how are they more skilled? Because they maybe have a higher three-point percentage? Well, that just means they traded one skill for another. See what I'm saying? Like that's a real thing. Okay. And then you look at it and you say, okay, you don't even see a number of point guards for the most part. You see a few, but a lot of them don't really average that those high assists. Like back in the day, we had a lot of point guards averaging over 9 assists per game. You generally don't see as many in the modern NBA. Why? Because you have so many extra passes, which is never a bad thing in basketball, right? But really, you have so many extra passes because everybody's looking to try and get to the corner three. So the pure point guards that might be averaging 11, 12, on the elite end, 13 or 14 assists per game, you're not seeing that because everything is, always looking for that extra pass, trying to get to the corner three. And so, you're just watching, again, more skilled, not really, just play a different way, right? More skilled, not really allowed to carry. More skilled, not really allowed to travel, right? You see what I'm saying? Like more skilled, could you really deal with a hand check? Could you deal with a forearm check? No, right? So we got to look at this and we just got to keep it 100, right? And that's not to denigrate the players today or say they can't play, because they are talented, they are skilled, but we don't have to try and tear down the generations of the past to try and lift them up and say that they're better. You see what I'm saying? We don't have to do that. It's not necessary. All right, let's go to the next BJ Armstrong clip here.
Mo, I've never seen it. It's kind of like, Mo, we're kind of like, it's just a program now. I don't even know. Like the defense is up on you, but you're still trying to shoot a three. The defense drops off of you. You're still trying to shoot a three. Well, they're dropping off of you because probably you can't shoot. But the guy still, when you couldn't shoot, Mo, in a few years ago, the coaches would teach you to take up the space to get to
close the gap.
So did we stop teaching that, Mo, or is that just like okay? So
otherwise, Ben Simmons would have a flourishing NBA career.
This is what bothers me, is because now, Mo, I'm beginning to question the teachers of the game. I'm questioning everybody now. So I don't want to go on some whatever. I'm not trying to go down that path, but it's just so disappointing because these are really, really good players. But Mo, the fundamentals of the game are clearly lacking. They're clearly lacking from the game because everyone doesn't play or have the same skill set as Steph Curry or Klay Thompson or, some of the Reggie Miller or Ray Allen. Okay. But Mo, some of the guys have a different skill set, which can be highlighted to help you win a game. And now the first thing, and then I'll be quiet here. Every single coach at the collegiate level or the pro level, you know what the first thing they ask me, Mo?
Tell me.
Can he shoot? And I asked them the same exact thing. If I sent you Shaquille O'Neal, would you ask that question?
All right. So more good commentary from BJ. This was a really good interview. Not interview, but really good show overall. This wasn't the main theme of it, but this was kind of something that he got into. Steve, no, I'm not going to fully commit to that. I will say these guys couldn't hang. I don't believe most of them could deal with trying to play in the 90s. The physicality would destroy them all. They're not built for that mentally or physically. So I'll give you that. So they're a bunch of soft candy crybabies. Okay, I'll give you that. But the the modern culture, the modern basketball culture, and the way they've been coached also kind of pushes them towards that, and the modern culture societally on the whole, right? We are unfortunately a very weak and rapidly weakening culture, and that is what it is, and that's a whole nother discussion I'm not going to get into, but it is what it is. But I often wonder, and I have this conversation with Transformer a lot, if some of these guys came up in the previous era, would they be able to do it? And some of them I don't believe so. Some of them I do believe. Like Ant Edwards, if he didn't have all this garbage being fed to him in the modern era, if he came up in that era, I think he would be a problem, right? So a guy like that, he would probably be, coincidence, Minnesota, right? I think he's kind of similar. I don't know where the Kobe and Jordan stuff comes from, but I think Isaiah Ryder is probably a better comparison for Ant Edwards. I really do, J.R. Ryder. If you haven't seen Isaiah Ryder, go back and watch that dude. He was a beast. He could handle it. He could shoot it in the mid-range. He could step out to three, and he was super athletic. He can bang on you, and he's also a former slam dunk champion. So no, Steve. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're not going to discuss the societal issues from a theological perspective. You and I could have a riveting discussion on that for sure, but we're not going to go that way. We're gonna keep it basketball. No, we're not doing that. But in all seriousness, I think that Isaiah Ryder and Edwards is a really good comparison. Tell me what y'all think about that in the chat. So BJ Armstrong says they're always shooting the three no matter what, right? If someone's in their face, they'll shoot the three. If someone is dropping off of them, they'll shoot the three. And this was interesting. He says back in the day, if you couldn't shoot, you were coached to take up the space, right? What does he mean by that? He means take up the space, i.e. Get closer to the rim, get would be a higher percentage shot for you, a shot that you're better at taking. Also, by moving away from that three-point line and getting closer to the rim, taking up the quote-unquote space, you're also creating space further out for that person on your team who was a better shooter, right? Who was more of a specialist in shooting the long ball, right? So you are moving through and creating more opportunities for them. So yeah, I like that a lot, that he talked about, you know, how you were coached back then. Also, I love, because I mentioned this earlier, I love that he said, you know, everyone doesn't have the same skill set. Everybody can do different things to help the team win. And this is what I don't understand, right? For instance, one of the things that drives me nuts about the modern NBA, there seems to be no real focus on rebounding, right? The great Pat Riley, and we're going to have a very good topic on Pat Riley on tomorrow night's show, but the great Pat Riley said that, what was his line? No rebounds, no rings. And that's so true, whether it's pickup or the NBA. If you don't hit the glass, like, hitting the glass is an easy way to win. How is that an easy way to win? It gets you extra possessions. Extra possessions will invariably lead to more points. No rebounds, no rings, but there seems to be very little focus on dominating and controlling the glass, whether it's offensive or defensive. And I remember I talked to a coach about this, and I think one of the things he was telling me is that if you focus on offensive rebounding, you will generally get beat in the numbers going the other way if the other team can secure the basketball in the defensive rebound, and that helps them get the ball out in transition, and then you're stuck. And then I guess your bigs would have to really, really sprint back to try and get back to defend the rim. So a lot of coaches are focusing a lot less on offensive rebounding in order to protect fast break points going the other way. But I don't know, man. I think that seems kind of weird to me, because we saw it taught and we saw it coached and we saw it played for so many years. Get to the glass where you can get offensive rebounds, where you get defensive rebounds, get defensive rebounds. Again, when you control the ball, the other team can't score, right? So I don't know what happened, because if that was the case back in the day, how were coaches able to commit resources to offensive rebounds, but still able to get back defensively to try and keep the other team from dominating in transition? Realistically, if we look back, there haven't been a whole ton of teams that were able to consistently dominate in transition, right? Showtime Lakers, right? Even those great Celtics teams of the 80s, they were very good in transition, not dominant, but Showtime Lakers, the 80s Dallas Mavericks, the 80s Denver Nuggets, the early to mid 90s, what is that? The Run TMC Golden State Warriors, Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, Chris Mullin, those guys. And I'm sure I'm missing a few, but the point is, on the whole, there weren't a lot of teams that were dominant in transition. Why? Because coaches knew how to coach it up to keep the opposition from getting back and killing, right? even if they were trying to dedicate resources to hitting the glass. So that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Everyone doesn't have the same skill set. So you have some rebounders, you have some defenders, you have some shooters, you have mid-range guys, you have slashers. Everybody does different things, and it comes together to bring the different elements to make the team successful, right? But today, what do we want? We want everybody to be able to play 5 out, get outside the line, and shoot the 3. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. Again, that's why I'm not a coach. I'm sitting here talking to you, right? But it does not work for me, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. All right, let's go to the last piece of what BJ Armstrong had to say, and we'll come back. We'll close it out, and I'll open up the phone line, see if I got any calls and anybody who wants to discuss anything I had to say or what BJ had to say. All right, so this is his last comment on this.
Nowadays, they probably would.
And nowadays, Mo, they probably would. And you're exactly right, Mo. And then that, to me, is why I'm countering with only terrific. Because, Mo, I refuse to believe if Shaquille O'Neal was playing in today's game, some executive would say, well, he can't shoot, so let's not play him. You can't tell me that, Mo. You can't tell me that the only thing that matters in the game is someone's ability to shoot a 3. It's like getting to a point now, Mo, where the scale has tipped so far that I'm just like, and by the way, I admire shooting. Like, the other way, I went to the Laker game and the guy made like, I don't know, he had like 37 points. But Mo, yeah, I understand why he's shooting 3s. But Mo, there are other people on the roster that shouldn't even be allowed to look at the 3-point line. They shouldn't even know what that line means out there. Okay? There's some players who shouldn't even, and those people now are taking 3s. And Mo, and I'm saying that because, listen, it is what it is. So I'm going to leave that alone.
Smart guy, leave that alone. He doesn't want to get completely shut down from NBA media. Although I think he's also a credentialed agent. So there's that. All right. Let's see. Nino says, okay, Bruce, how much of the teams have gotten smarter? Why would you defend a player that can't shoot? That's why I always bring up they had a legal defense in the 90s and Phil Jackson and MJ exploited. So if I'm not mistaken, right, I think the illegal defense was more to keep teams from really just dropping down and totally locking up the dominant center, right? So I get what you're saying. You don't want to defend a player who can't shoot, but at the same time, that player may have other things that they need to do on that team, right? Maybe that player can't shoot, but maybe that player crashes the glass incessantly, right? So what do I have to do? I have to keep a defender on them and keep a body on them to keep them from crashing the glass, right? Maybe that player can't shoot, but that player sets vicious screens, right? So I got to try and keep a body with that player and kind of block him from getting to where he wants to be on the floor so that he can't set the screens to allow this other team, the opposition, to get into their flow in terms of their offensive execution, right? So even though the player can't shoot, and that's what I'm saying, like in the modern game, we are so we're so like locked into this. Everything has to be shoot threes. And there are more things that players can do to help their team win games, right? There's more things like the 2 that I just mentioned. So that's kind of why you have to do that, right? And even the player who can't shoot, let's say you sag off of him, you leave him because he can't shoot. Oh, I don't got to defend that guy. Self-check, right? But guess what that dude is doing? Because back then you actually had, fundamentals and skills and you were taught the game. Oh, he leaving me alone? Backdoor, layup, dunk, easy, right? So you have to think about all those different things. So it's not just why defend a player who can't shoot. I hope that answers your question, Nino. Again, I'm not a coach, but I have some understanding of this game. At least I thought I did, but maybe now I don't because of, I'm questioning the way that guys are coaching it and playing it now. But all right, so one of the things that he talked about, BJ Armstrong at the end of the last one I played, and then following into this one I just played, was he says that whenever he talks to execs and coaches, whether it's in high school, college, or the pro, first thing they ask about a player is, can he shoot, right? Because they've all been trained to think that way. Can he shoot? The three-pointer is so valuable. Can he shoot? Can he shoot? Can he shoot? And he says you always ask the same question. If I brought you Shaquille O'Neal, would you ask me, can he shoot, right? And he's right. There are some people who would ask that question, coaches, GMs, etc. And it's crazy because I've heard it time and time again. They tell me Patrick Ewing couldn't play today, or Shaq couldn't play today, or so many of the dominant big centers couldn't play today. Why? Because they can't switch the pick and roll. Well, guess what? Don't switch the freaking pick and roll with them. If they can't play today because they can't switch the pick and roll, don't switch the pick and roll. Let's think about how we were all taught when we were coming up to deal with the pick and roll, right? All right, I'm defending Steve. Nino's got the ball, right? And New Breed is defending Nino, right? So, okay, cool. Steve sets the pick. Nino comes off. He's still got the ball, right? All right, cool. So what do? I don't switch it, right? I show hard. I hedge, right? I get out there because Nino's man got beat. Nino's man got screened off. But guess what Nino's man has to do? He has to fight through the screen and get back to Nino. All I'm doing, I'm not completely switching the pick and roll. All I'm doing is hedging and showing so Nino doesn't have an open look to pull up for the jump shot, or he can't get around the corner and start getting downhill. I'm just hedging. I'm showing, okay, there's somebody here until Nino's defender fights through the screen, gets back on him, and then I go back to where I came from, defending Steve, right? You see how this works? Now, I'm not saying that's perfect in every case. We saw, as I said earlier, we saw John Stockton and Karl Malone and the Utah Jazz run that into oblivion, right? I saw that. They were masters at the PNR. We know that. But the point is, for the most part, defending the pick and roll works that way. So this whole business of switching everything, I think is really dumb. I think that somebody thought that it would be genius and it'd make them look like a super smart defensive coach or whatever to do it that way. But it's a bad move, because why do you think we end up so often in these mismatch situations in the NBA? That's why everybody's always looking to get into pick and roll, right? 1-4 PNR, all that, so they can get a situation on them, right? If you're a point guard, a smaller point guard, you would love to get some power forward on you, because you're quicker than him, you can get past him, right? You're always looking to exploit that situation. But instead, hedge, show, teach guys to fight through the screen, get back to their man, and I think defense would work a whole lot better. That's me. Steve says, hedge and get back and watch Steve get to the low post and barbecue. There we go. But no, the point is, you guys see what I'm saying? Like, it's really frustrating to me. And again, I'm not saying that new strategies and new schemes can't evolve to help coach and play the game a different way and add different things to it. But that's not what we're seeing. To BJ Armstrong's point, we are seeing the vast majority of the modern NBA play the game the same way over and over and over. We're seeing the majority of the modern NBA coached and played the same way. Everybody wants to be the Splash Brothers. Everybody doesn't have the freaking Splash Brothers. It doesn't work that way. Run your offense, execute it, and do your thing, right? For instance, I'm going to make a quick apples to oranges comparison. We're going to talk college football here. You look at the service academies, right? Those guys aren't getting the top flight recruits, so they can only play a certain way, right? So most of them, they play that triple option style. Okay, they play the triple option style. They practice that to a crazy degree. They execute it to a crazy degree. They're super disciplined, and they generally have success against other teams with it. Right? There are different ways to play the game. You could play run and shoot. You could play spread. You could play pro style. You could play I formation, power I, whatever it may be. Well, you don't see a lot of power I's anymore. But the point I'm trying to get is that there are different ways to do things, and the truly creative and brilliant coaches don't just mimic. Now, don't get me wrong, sports on the whole is copycat. But if you copy something, what you do is you copy it and then you tweak it and you make it your own. Or you have your system and you add elements of another system that works successfully. You don't just try to copy it. And because generally most people don't have the personnel to do it, or they don't have the coaches to do it. So the point I'm trying to make with all this is I totally agree with BJ Armstrong in that so many of today's coaches and players are just robots. They're all trying to do the same thing. They're all trying to coach the same way. They're all trying to play the same way. There's a lack of creativity, and it's hurting the game. This is not hating. This is actually loving because we love basketball and we are hurt by what it's become. So yeah, that's what I got to say about that, man. This was something I was kind of passionate about. And when I heard what he had to say, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to talk about this because this is real to me. Let's see. Steve said, Steve and Nino going at it in the chat. This is great. Nino says, Steve, if the Jazz would have run a pick and roll instead of post up, they might have forced game 7. Nah, not really. They were running pick and roll most of the way. But the problem is, Nino, if you remember, because I know you're a basketball historian as well, those Bulls of the second three-peat were arguably the greatest perimeter defensive team of all time with Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Ron Harper, right? So Michael Jordan and Ron Harper, both 6'6" long arm guys, super athletic, even though Ron Harper wasn't even as athletic as he was when he was younger because he had blown out his knee and come back from that. Scottie Pippen, we know, one of the best perimeter and all-around defenders of all time. So the length on that perimeter defensively made it really, really hard to do stuff, especially the pick and roll. That's why you saw some of the super low scores that you saw in those NBA finals, not because the teams weren't great or not because, you know, they were quote-unquote plumbers. No, because the defense that you saw, those were both two elite defensive teams. So that was a big problem there. Yeah, so that's what a big part of it was. So yeah, what I'm gonna do here before I get out of here, y'all, I'm gonna put the number in the chat, 904-219-8264, and of course it's also scrolling on the bottom of the screen. I would love to hear somebody call in and give me your thoughts on this. I'll wait a couple minutes, hopefully take a couple of calls on this, on what BJ Armstrong had to say and what I had to say and what you guys thought about my breakdown, and you know, where am I wrong, where am I right? I would love to hear it. Yeah, so let's get it, man. Phone lines are open. Give me a call. And so I went live here totally forgetting that the freaking Kansas City Chiefs are playing right now. So I'm sure a lot of people are watching that and not watching me, but it is what it is. Let's take this call. Steve, what's up, my man?
Not much, bro. How you doing?
Maintain. You have a nice Thanksgiving?
I did. It was wonderful. Family, food, too much turkey.
And football.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, can't leave that part out.
Yes, sir.
It was wonderful. Hopefully yours was the same.
Yeah, man, it was nice, man.
Safe, healthy, and happy.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man, I just wanted to pretty much agree with a lot of what BJ was saying.
Mm-hmm.
And he makes really good points as far as the genesis of all this, like the starting point. I've noticed this starts at the AAU camps, the AAU tournaments, travel teams, the private academies, the Catholic schools, the dominant programs that have the best talent that progress and go into college and then later into the pros, where their beginning stages, they're getting programmed into this. It's not to say the individual is low IQ.
Right.
But the basketball, it's low IQ basketball.
Yes.
And that's where, you know, not to be in an insensitive way, but we're seeing it in real time. All of the metrics are pretty much showing it's just bad basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the NBA ratings, this might be the lowest the NBA ratings have been since what?
It's been a while, man. It's bad.
70? 70s, maybe?
It's pretty bad.
I mean, you're seeing in real time bad basketball being played, and you're seeing a lot of this has to do. I made a comment earlier in the chat. You're seeing a lot of these foreigners, these European guys come over to the league, and they're playing really well very soon in their career.
Yep.
And you're not seeing that from these guys from your Dukes,
no.
Kentucky, you know, the UCLAs, the Michigan State. Like, you're just not seeing it. And it's because from 15 to 16 years old, where it's like, okay, these guys are the best athletes. We're going to put them in AAU, but they're not developing them correctly. The skills aren't there, where you're seeing some of the best athletes at the 4 and 5, but none of them can get a bucket inside of 5 feet. They have no low post moves. There's nothing. And they're being told to stretch out and shoot 26% from 3, to 33% from three.
Mhm.
And it's like, that's just not a good brand of basketball that people are going to watch.
Well, I think they're telling them that if they shoot enough of them, it's going to continue to improve. But here's part of that thing, right? You were talking about the AAA and AAU, excuse me, and that's a great point that I didn't even really address here. But it's a great point that you brought up. And I think a big part of it, remember you and I in the chat were speaking to larger societal issues, which I'm not going to get into, but I'll just say this. On the AAU front, it's hard to coach guys and make them do skill work other than like, dribbling and shoot threes, right? Like real skill work, real fundamental work, and real defense work. Why? Because if I do that, most of the time that kid is going to get up and leave, right? And that kid is a moneymaker for my program. And so, they all have this mentality. One, I don't need to respect coaches. I don't need to respect anybody, or not all, I should say. Many of the best players, unfortunately, have that attitude. I'm a superstar already, because maybe some of them are already getting slipped money. In some states, they're making NIL. They're getting they're superstars via social media, all that. So they say, man, I don't need to listen to anybody. I don't need to listen to this coach. I don't need to do anything I don't want to do. So the coachable mentality, for the most part, unfortunately, is not there anymore. And so they're like, man, I'll just go over here. And we know who basically made it, cool. Hey, if I don't like it over here, I'll just go over there, so you have that going on. And so all those things really hurt it on the AAU level to say, I can't coach these guys hard because I'm gonna lose this star player. And also, as I understand it, apparently there's not a whole ton of time to practice on the AAU level anyway. So the whole thing is to get in as many games as you can. And these guys are playing tons of games every weekend. They're flying and going to trips and all that. I know my big brother, he played at Gauchos. I think he played Riverside as well. He played AAU ball with like Steph Marbury on the same team with these guys. So, he was really good, but it's tough, man. I've talked to him about the AAU environment, and it's way worse today than it was even back then. So,
Yeah, and it's not much better at the actual, because I'm pretty sure the AAU is like off season. It's no better with the academies, the private schools, the Catholic schools.
Right.
It's the same thing where it's like I can up and go to the other academy.
That's right.
And the thing is, to piggyback off your point, when these guys are 16 years old and they get that 5-star, that gets in their head too.
Yeah.
And it's like, how are you going to coach a dude that's already got 20 offers, he's been deemed a 5-star, he's looking at the McDonald's All-American game. There's a status that goes with it too. And then you're seeing overseas at 16, they're thrusted into the professional league where it's like, no, you're going to learn how to be a pro.
That's right.
Versus here at 16, you're kind of getting your butt kicked and you're getting to kind of call the shots in your way.
That's right.
Where you have this amateur status, but you're really not, you're technically an amateur, but you don't live the amateur lifestyle. You're going around, like you said, like this influencer age. You have this status, this almost elitist status at such a young age. And you're right. How can you coach? I mean, we all know, I know for me as a young man, at 16 years old, if I had that type of status,
absolutely.
Wow, you wouldn't be able to tell me anything either.
Well, so, I don't know. My parents would have, they probably would have checked me real hard on that, but I hear you.
I'd have bucked them. I tried to buck them. I was blessed. My parents would have given it to me too. But I just know my natural proclivities have been like, I'm the man. I'm the man.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
BJ makes a good point when he's talking about like the origin of this is where it's the developmental thing, where we have to go to like these big institutions as far as AAU, the high school levels, the academies. They're teaching this program of basketball instead of teaching the game of basketball.
Correct.
And you're seeing it all throughout college. Look at these college coaches now. I mean, Jay Wright retired, and he had probably 15 years left he could have coached. You're
didn't want to deal with it.
The Roy Williams, the Mike Krzyzewski.
That's right.
And then you're seeing now. Look at Tom Izzo. I grew up loving Michigan State basketball. Us Italians stick together, brother. So, I grew up loving Michigan State basketball. Now Michigan State's a non-factor because he's not allowed to yell at guys anymore.
Really?
And you should see Michigan State's horrible.
That's crazy.
Ever since 2020, and the Cassius Winston, left.
Oh yeah,
after that 2020 season, it's just never been the same. He can't get on guys. If he yells at a guy in a huddle, it's front page news. It's on ESPN. So it's like you're seeing the basketball we love, that uber masculine, that hard nosed, tough defense,
right?
all of these intangibles that made basketball so lovable that the older guard embraced.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing the opposite, where it's like players control everything in the league. You can't coach guys at the high school and college level. And then you're seeing this horrible game of basketball that the fans just frankly aren't interested in watching. One, it's harder to love these guys because, like you said, it doesn't work out 2-3 years here. I'm going to the next thing, the next and better thing.
That's right.
So it's harder for the fans to really get behind these guys that they drafted. And then secondly, it's like, if I know my guy is going to go to a bigger market for money, and this brand of basketball is just boring to watch, who wants to watch 31% guys shoot 3-pointers, for 4 quarters? It's just a bad recipe, and you're seeing a lot of people talk about this. The problem is now, someone like BJ coming out and saying this, you and I are clapping. We're like, oh, thank you. But, finally, somebody's saying something. The younger generation is just going to poo-poo this, and they're going to say, oh, he's just a hater. Because we see that. When we're talking shop, they'll say, oh, you're just a hater. You hate, you're an old man on your porch yelling at the clouds. And it's like, well, hold on. There's some credibility here because we've seen it both ways.
Exactly. But again, to my point, and then I'll get out of here. It's not hating. We're like this because we love the game and we're sad at what's happening to it. So the fact that, and like I always say, man, calling somebody a hater, that's just a low information response. There's no other way around it.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Oh, you a hater. Oh, you don't have anything better to say. I got it.
It's the debate tactic of name calling and accusing instead of actually addressing the argument.
Yeah.
It's like, you can call me a hater, fine. Now address my argument, but they won't do that because they know they'll lose. That's
right. What that's called is sign language: shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right. Shout out to great Kevin Samuels. But yeah,
there you go.
That's what that is, man.
Hey, you brought him up, not me. I'm going to behave.
I'm not going any further than that. I'll be, in respect to you and your channel, I'll behave. I appreciate that, Steve. Oh my goodness. But yeah, man. Great call. I appreciate it, Steve. Thanks so much, man.
I appreciate you too, brother. You have a good one.
All right, man. Go Irish.
Yes, sir.
All right, team. Another great call from Steve. As always, I will give it just about another minute here if anybody else wants to call in. I don't know if Nino had any thoughts on this, but if not, I'll go ahead and I'll just leave it there. So we'll take about another minute. But yeah, BJ had a lot of really good commentary here, and it's, again, it's just it's kind of disturbing. It's kind of sad, and I don't know where the NBA is going to go forward. But what I can say is, no matter how much they pretend, I don't think they're particularly worried about the domestic interest in the product. As long as China keeps loving the NBA, and as long as Europe keeps loving the NBA, and then they continue to expand, then we'll know. All right, let me take this. I got man down Mel. Mel, what's good, man? Welcome to the Format Podcast. What's going on, brother? It's been a while.
What's going on, man? Can you hear me good? I'm in my car.
Yes, sir. I can hear you, man.
All right, so I was listening to the first caller.
Okay.
And he made a lot of good points. But there was a lot of them that was kind of off, man. I start with when he said that the Europeans are coming over here and saying that they're playing a better brand of basketball than what's being taught over here in America. Listen, the issue with the AAU basketball, and I get to European basketball in a minute, but the issue with the AAU basketball is those coaches and those trainers are looking at the NBA landscape and seeing what the NBA wants in a basketball player, and they're just telling them to do that. Hey, look, if you want to be in the NBA, you got to be able to shoot the three. You got to be able to play like this. You got to be able to help spread the floor, whatever the case may be. So what it really is the NBA doesn't value defense. The NBA doesn't value good basketball. They value the three-point shot and the player that can play iso ball with five men out and big. That doesn't want to post up. they can also shoot the ball. So the NBA is showing everybody under them, college, high school, middle school, they're showing them what we want in our league. And this is what you got to look like if you want to make it to our league. So everything that we're talking about as far as AAU is a reflection of what the NBA is projecting, right? That's number one. Number two, the Euro players aren't coming over here playing better basketball. It's just that this style of play is more conducive to what they have been doing over in the Euro leagues for so long, right? So when you come over here and you give Luka the ball and you spread the floor 5-man out and you tell everyone that we're going to watch Luka dribble the ball and take 30 shots a game from anywhere on the floor where he wants to, and your job is to make sure you occupy your man away from him so the floor is wide open, then, yeah, it's going to look like Luka is outplaying players, but what it really is they're designing an offense where only he can record a stat. It's either going to be his assist or his point, right? Same thing with Jokic. So, no, it's not that the Europeans are playing much better basketball. It's just that the NBA has jacked up what American basketball players had the advantage at, like the post game and physical defense and defending and getting up and down the floor running and all of these things and athleticism. They've taken that away from them and said, you have to be great at what the Euros are great at now. And that's what's going on. And you can't blame AAU. This is all on the NBA. The NBA got the power to change all of this by valuing the right thing. Like right now, it don't matter what team is winning, whether it's the Celtics, the Cavs, or the Warriors who have the best record in the league, or SGA and OKC Thunder. They still have Jokic number one on the MVP ladder because of he's the closest player to a triple-double that also can win enough ball games where he can't be disqualified. They want Luka to be an MVP, but he disqualifies himself every year by missing ball games for being out of shape and playing so horrible that his team get off the slow start every single year that he's the MVP favorite. And he disqualifies himself within the first month of the season every year. If it wasn't for that, the number one and number two MVP ladder would be Jokic and Luka because they're the closest player to triple-doubles. Meanwhile, LaMelo Ball is doing the exact same thing Luka is doing, but getting better numbers while doing it and looking better while doing it and playing defense while doing it. But he's not winning a lot of ball games, and he's nowhere near the MVP discussion.
Right.
So this issue is the NBA as a front office, the people who cover the NBA and the media, and everyone who got this thing misconstrued, who's actually contributing to us putting out a bad product on the NBA floor, man. And that's my only thoughts on that, big dog.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Let me push back a little bit, right? So I think more so not necessarily saying the Euros are coming over here playing better brand of basketball. I think what he said and what I agree with is that they're coming over here having more success early in their careers, right? And a big part of that is, to your point, the fact that the league has changed, right? Because you remember when you and I were coming up, European players, no matter how good they were, there was a steep learning curve once they got here, right? Drazen Petrovic, he got over here. He was a killer, but he couldn't see the floor in Portland, right? It took him, 2 or 3 seasons. By the time he gets to New Jersey, then he starts killing. He's over there in the backcourt with Kenny Anderson, and has Derek Coleman in the front court, and he's killing. He's giving Jordan 30. Now he's catching 45 because, he can't defend him, but he's doing work, right? So that's an example. Obviously, we know Tony Kukoc was Luka in Europe before Luka. He was clearly the most dominant player over there, comes over here. Again, hell of a learning curve, never became that level of player in the NBA. But so I think it was more so not necessarily to say they're playing a better brand of basketball, but to say that they're coming over here and finding success earlier in their careers than they ever were able to before, because so much of the physicality is educated out. But the funny thing is, guys who have played over here, whether it's collegiately or in the pros and then go to Europe, or guys who play internationally, like, American basketball, et cetera. I've heard this from a number of players. They're saying Europe is more physical now. So it's almost like a flip-flop has taken place. They're saying European basketball is more physical now. And again, we know that there's more of a focus in European basketball. Even on the professional level, them dudes still do 2-a-days. So there's way more of a focus on team basketball, way more of a focus on fundamentals, and way more of a focus on just playing the right way. But now Luka is going to be Luka because, he's Luka and he plays how he plays. But because he's able to do what he's able to do, I think a lot of coaches let him get away with that. And finally, I had a guy I know that played pro overseas. I went to college with him at University of North Florida, Al-Wajid Aminu, and he was nice, super athletic guy. But, he told me over there, it's different. So I get what you're saying, but just, wanted to add that layer of context to the discussion as well.
Yeah, but even to your first point about them having much more success, I will say they're having more success maybe earlier than the Euros before, right? But I disagree that it's because they're better players or more ready for the NBA. I don't think they're better players. I don't think Luka is a better player than Dragan Petrovic or Barcelona.
No,
right?
No, he's not.
I think Luka is right on par with Charkaloo. Now, I will say this.
I see that. That's a great analogy. I see that.
That success that we think they're having is really just the way our mind has been conditioned to see good greatness in the NBA, because they're really not. I mean, if you look at the best ones, Luka and Jokic, they're not having more success than Tatum is. Tatum's only 26. He's been to the finals twice.
Right.
He's been to the Eastern Conference Finals 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
Right. At 26. And he's won a
championship.
final, right?
Yep.
And he's got 2 gold medals. The only thing he doesn't have is that all-elusive MVP that seems like you can get unless you're averaging a triple-double or you're playing triple-double basketball where you're the point guard and you're the one who's in charge of all the assists and you're in charge of also getting your own shot at 30 shots per game, right? If you're not playing that style of ball, you're gonna be outpaced in the MVP discussion for players who are playing that style of basketball. That's what it really is. Jason Tatum is playing on both sides of the floor.
He sure is.
He's playing defense. He's playing. Look, he's the key to the Celtics' success because he's accepted a role to play power forward, which is a position above where he should be playing, and go down there and bang for rebounds. He's averaging 10 rebounds like a power forward.
Yep.
He's averaging 10 rebounds a game, and then he's still responsible for switching screens and guarding some of the best wing offensive players like Luka and Kyrie on the switch. Right? So what he's doing on defense is way more impressive than a triple-double. That him being the number 1 scorer for the team, and then also being the key to their success on defense because he's playing power forward and rebounds, and still getting 6 assists out of that.
Yeah. No,
but it's not close to a triple-double as Luka and Jokic, so he's not in the MVP discussion. It's discussed.
No argument here. One more question for you before I let you go and I get out of here. I don't know if you heard it earlier. I made the comparison when I was talking about players today that would be able to have high-level success back in the day. And it got to, we hear these ridiculous Ant Edwards, Kobe, and Michael Jordan analogies, and I don't know why it never hit me till today. And I don't know if it's just the T-Wolves thing or not, but I think the much better comparison, Ant Edwards is Isaiah Ryder. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I heard you when you said it, and I had never thought about it, and it is a really good comparison for sure. I forget how good Isaiah Ryder was, but I think Isaiah Ryder was probably a better shooter than Anthony Edwards.
I think so.
Yeah, he was, man. But as athletes, yeah, they both was great athletes, great dunkers, great going to the rim. Isaiah Ryder, most of the 6'4", 6'5" guards had a good post game in the 90s. So I think Isaiah Ryder can get you something in the post. I don't know if Anthony Edwards can see you like that consistently, but Isaiah Ryder might be a slightly better player. I think Edwards is the better athlete though. I think that in college, man. In Georgia, I think he was an elite athlete in college, man. So the potential Anthony Edwards has, he could, end up being a way better player than Isaiah Ryder. But right now, I think they neck and neck for sure. But as far as players going back and making it in that league, number one, if we take some of the players that play power forward and center, and those guys that are playing right now, I don't think they translate that well to the 90s because they don't understand what that physicality was about.
That's right.
Right. And then for the players who are tweeners, like, who are tall but don't have the body, say like let's say somebody like Mobley, Evan Mobley or something like that, right? They wouldn't even put him in the game his first couple of years until he gained enough weight to be able to withstand, because he would end up injured, right? So a player like Evan Mobley, that's what Jermaine O'Neal body looked like when he first got in the league.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, he was a string bean.
And Portland would not play him. You're not ready. Like if you can't bang down low with these bigs, you're not even getting in the game. And forget about us putting you in at the three. You're not playing the three, right? You're 6'11". You're gonna play power forward or center, and you don't have the body for it. So you got to gain weight, which is what Jermaine O'Neal had to do. And then when he ended up going to Indiana, he started playing a lot because he had the body for it. They're not putting no string in. Jonathan Bender was another guy.
I remember him too.
11. That body couldn't withstand playing the power forward position. He stayed hurt. It just is what it is. McDicey came in. We're not going to let you off the hook at 6'11" and figure out a way that you can play on the wing. We're not doing it. You're going down low. So half of the players, just based on their size, would not be able to play their position, which means that coach would probably bench them. And then the rest of them, the physicality would probably kind of even them out. Like a player like Steph Curry would be more on par with Mark Price, and he wouldn't be allowed to shoot 15 threes a game, right? Even though he's a great shooter and the greatest shooter on the court, we still ain't letting you shoot 15 threes. You're throwing the ball down low to this speed, right? So it just would have been different, man. That era of basketball, you would have had to be born in that era, and if you were born in that era, you would have been playing that style of basketball, and it is what it is. There
you go. Man, thanks for the call, Mel. I appreciate it, man. Hey, if y'all don't know, man, y'all got to check out Man Down Sports. If you're not subscribed to that, get on over there. Click that click that subscribe, click that button, man. Mel has got some tremendous content. But yeah, I appreciate the call, brother, and I will get with you next time. All right. So that's me. I'm going to get out of here, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for kicking it with me today. Definitely wanted to just give my thoughts on that. And we'll be back tomorrow night with the guys. Y'all have a good one. Enjoy your leftovers. And I'm out. Peace. Go Irish.